Welcome to Impartial Partisan, the show where you will get opinions that you can't get anywhere else. I'm Fred Swann.
I'm Adam Fleeman.
And today we're going to talk about 4 topics that we found very interesting throughout the last couple of weeks. We're going to hit 2 issues on the presidential campaign. We're going to discuss Syrian refugees. And finally, we're going to discuss recent WikiLeaks release of information on SourceAmerica. But first, let's hit
Benghazi!
A quote by Republican Congressman Len Westmoreland about the Benghazi hearings, as if we haven't heard enough about Benghazi.
I need to hear about Benghazi every day.
I'm sure. Benghazi.
I need to hear it all the time.
I think if we say it long enough, the words will just no longer even have meaning anymore.
I'm already desensitized to it. I hear somebody on the right say Benghazi, I'm already like, I can't even talk to you. I already know where you're at. And there's no point in having a conversation about Hillary Clinton anymore because you've bought in to a Hillary Clinton that doesn't really exist. And I have real complaints about who Hillary Clinton is. Benghazi isn't even on the list.
So let's get into what Westmoreland said.
Please.
Len Westmoreland is a congressman from great state of Georgia in the 3rd Congressional District. That stretches from about South Atlanta to North Columbus, the richer part of Columbus. And he said, it's kind of a little lengthy, quote, "As you know, some of you may have watched the marathon Hillary Clinton fiasco, and I say that because Trey Gowdy, the chairman of the committee," so first of all, he's already throwing Trey Gowdy under the bus.
Sure.
Not that he doesn't deserve it. Wanted to interview her in private, and she said, "No, I want to do this in public." So right there, first of all, it seems like Westmoreland has an objection to Clinton wanting a public hearing.
But didn't they also have an objection to her wanting to do it, or to? I'm just so confused because had she had said the other, they would have objected to this. And
right? Why don't you want it to be public? What are you hiding, Clinton?
Yeah.
But now it's like, oh, she wants it to be public. Okay, so while we should say open government should be the goal, should be the thing that we're looking for, let's see. I'm just going to read you another little bit of the quote so you can see what his objection was. Quote. "Now, to me, that was us stepping into a trap because we should have known that she was going to go on and just stall, debate, filibuster on these answers to make it go as long as possible so we would look cruel."
How could she do this to us?
I know.
Our feelings.
What a horrible human being to do that to Republicans.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay, so I don't know if it makes them look cruel or if they're actually cruel. Now, I will say one of the things, the media saw this as her sitting there looking not only patient, not only looking in command, but looking presidential. For the first time in a long time, looking very presidential, and Republicans on the committee who are normally in charge looking childish, looking whiny, looking like complaining school children. I've heard some complaints of. Nobody is saying Republicans did great. Everybody's saying Clinton had a great day on the Hill, and it was 11 hours
of free press. Let's not take away of what this actually was for Clinton. When they gave her the option to do it on TV, and she said TV, it wasn't for open government. Let's be real.
Oh, obviously.
It was because she knew her face was going to be on TV for 11 hours. You're a candidate for the Democratic president. TV time is the most important thing you could have right now. And the Republicans just gave it to her, 11 hours worth. Do you know how much she would have to pay to have 11 hours worth?
Well, it's because they really thought they had her. They really thought they had her. They were just going to nail her on national television, and they were going to expose her for the liar, hypocrite, and fraud that she is.
Like they couldn't do the 7 times before.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Because they'd have her there and have her just sitting there going... They really, in their minds, that was what was going on in their little echo chamber. They really thought they had her. And when she had good answers to everything, was not petulant as she could have been with how long they stretched things out, and was very patient and in command of all the facts and issues, it didn't look good. And so now Lynn Westmoreland has said that she set the trap which the Republicans stepped in.
Yeah, and she got all the benefit out of that.
Yeah, she did.
You know,
I'm not going to say that it was not obviously a strategic move on her part. It was obviously a strategic move on her part.
But it was that move wasn't even in her. It was given to her.
Right.
They handed it to her on a silver platter, and she honestly, she just looked at it and was like, "Are you really just handing me 11 hours of free publicity? You're dummy."
It's like I guess. Get the camera.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want this right. What's my footage? So,
yeah. Look at the look on her face right there.
Right.
That says it all.
Right. Well, maybe hopefully we'll be able to get a picture of that.
It'll be on the website down.
Yeah, it'll at least be on the website. Yeah. The link will be down in the comments. But yeah, that face said it all. She was just like, "I'm here. I'm still here. Keep it coming, fellas. Whatever you gotta do, let's just get through this."
You know who's really happy about this? Her super PACs. They didn't have to spend any money that week.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. Or even now, they're still re-airing everything still, and we're, a week and a half after?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're still talking about it. We're giving her free press as well. So, Clinton campaign or super PACs, we'd be more than happy to take some donations for the free press that we're giving her. But at any rate, I just think that that's a sign of how far they have to go, the mental gymnastics that they have to go to justify how long they have dragged this thing.
This is the second show in a row that we've had to talk about the thin skin of Republicans.
Right.
Because this is something else. She was so cruel to us.
Right.
The media is so cruel to them. Hillary Clinton's so cruel to them. Next thing you know, you're going to be so cruel to them forever.
Oh, I have conservative friends who just think that I worship the devil, and I'm just here to make their conservative lives difficult. I know that.
Speaking of conservative friends, the next thing we're going to talk about should actually set our conservative friends' minds at ease, and it's the vetting process of the Syrian refugees that are going to be coming over to the U.S. So stick around. We'll be right back with that. Have you checked your Facebook recently? Have you seen all the comments about these refugees coming in?
I'm sorry, refugees. Is there a crisis or something going on? I don't really know anything about that. Why don't you?
Sure. Well, the U.S. has decided to bring in 10,000 refugees for the remainder of this year.
Yes.
And I want to say it's 100,000 for next year.
I think that's the number, right?
Okay, so we're gonna be bringing in refugees, and this is a good thing. And we bring in refugees every year, about 1 million every year is what we brought in since I want to say 2010. So we're gonna add 10,000 Syrian refugees. Once again, this is a good thing. These are people that are running from the terrorism that we're all fighting right now, that we want no part of. They don't want any part of it either.
They're in the middle of a harsh civil war between rebels and who aren't great themselves and a despotic totalitarian dictator who kills his own people.
And disclosure here, I'm no fan of Islam. I'm not. However, I am a fan of being compassionate. And yes, there may be 1 or 2 terrorists that are refugees right now. However, once I read the process, I was put at ease.
Well, I think we would like to talk about the process to some degree, because I just had a discussion last night with a couple of friends of mine, and one of the objections they actually brought up to the bringing in refugees was the fact that the possibility that Islamic terrorists could be in the group that is brought, and how could you even know? And what they said was they equated it to bringing 100 people into your neighborhood and you being asked to take one of those people, and it's not very likely, but it is possible that person is a child molester or a mass murderer or something. Would you still take that person in? that was the way it was framed,
and
that's the way it's framed
on the right.
Right,
the right has been wording this. Would you open up your doors? How many would you take into your house? And they even remove the Syrian and Islam out of it. And how many homeless people are you going to take into your house tonight? And that's not what we're doing. We're doing the same thing that we've been doing for the history of America.
Right.
We've taken in refugees.
Okay.
We're not that doesn't mean we bring them into our homes. This just means that we take care of our fellow people. And would I take somebody into my home if it was really needed? However, we all pay taxes for the purpose of taking these people in. There's a bucket for this. For this specific reason, of the money that we give to our government to handle things like this for us so that we don't have to open our doors.
All right, so we mentioned before we're going to talk about the vetting process, and without further ado, why don't you go ahead and just kind of lay it out a little bit.
Just a quick breakdown. The things that I read, and we're going to have everything linked down here, is only 50% of the refugees applying actually make it through the process to come here to the States.
Okay.
It's only 50%. And there's a breakdown. 25. Most of them are children. 25% are adults over the age of 60, and only 2 admitted are males of combat age.
Okay. No, I meant 2 total or 2%?
2%.
Okay.
2% are males of combat age. So that should alleviate a lot of the fears that the people on the right are having, even though I still think that there are probably males of combat age who aren't terrorists. I mean, let's just be real about it. These people are running from it. And honestly, if you were a member of ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, or whatever, it would be much easier for you to just get a tourist visa, fly in, do your business, kill people, and of course yourself. This process takes what did I say earlier? 18 to 24 months.
So here's the thing that I think is dividing people, is that there are some people who are just so afraid that they're letting almost panic seize them with regard to this. They're not thinking about the facts that would you really try to put in a 2-year-long process just to set off a bomb in New York or
there's
Atlanta,
another option,
when you can get in easier? There are easier ways to get into the country, legal ways to get into the country. Honestly, as long as you're sophisticated enough. So 30 governors throughout the U.S. have said they will not take in refugees. They will not take in Syrian refugees. Now, they don't have the power to do that.
No, they're just they're pandering.
Right, that's pandering to the masses. They don't have the power to do it. It is what it is. And many candidates for the Republicans have said that they either don't want to take in any refugees, or they will only take in Christian Syrians.
This says a lot of good stuff about us as Americans. Yeah.
Chris Christie, most notably, said he wouldn't take in refugees even under the age of 5, even if they were orphans. Like, they have no parents, they have no one to drag over with them because they're a child, needs someone to take care of them. These are orphans he would not even take in a 5-year-old orphan with no other ties who just needs to get out of a war-torn country.
I bet he would change his mind if they all had sandwiches. Cold cuts, bring them in.
Yeah,
bring them in.
Yeah, a little turkey, a little salami, a little ham.
Yeah, it's a good thing to bring in the refugees. It's not just good because we are, as a lot of people would like to keep telling me, a majority Christian nation. That's how we're a majority Christian nation. Christians are about making sure that we give charity where that charity is needed. And this is one case where it's needed right now.
But even if you were to take out the moral or religious implications and just look at it on its face, America is generally a world leader. We are looked to by the rest of the world to lead in some fashion. And so what actions we take usually will bring someone else along, or if someone else is taking our place, then that makes us look bad. France, who had the terrible attacks what was it, last weekend, at the moment of this taping, France is going to take in 30,000 Syrian refugees.
Yep, they didn't change their minds at all.
No, they said afterwards, we're not changing our minds. This does not change us at all. We understand these refugees are not connected to these attacks. And these attacks may have been an attempt to try to get us to not take in refugees.
To turn people away from Western countries
because
and
that's
right
what
into
ISIS,
the arms of terrorist factions.
Because that's what ISIS wants.
Yep. So this is not just a compassionate measure. It is a safety measure.
Right.
It is a security measure to take these people in. It's a whole lot easier to watch these, as the right wing would call terrorists, when they're here than when they're floating around somewhere in Syria.
I heard a really great suggestion. This is kind of a more state and local...
Badges, tag them.
That was not the great suggestion. No. I'm not going to let you get me on that one, the way that guy got Trump on his. But I heard a really great suggestion that was kind of more of a state and local kind of suggestion. Because we've had so many BRACs base closures, there are a lot of bases that have a huge amount of infrastructure just sitting there we're doing nothing with. Dormitories.
They have dorms there for soldiers.
Why can't we put Syrian refugees, at least for a while, until we've vetted them, even beyond the vetting process, to the ultimate vetting or whatever we want to do, put them there for now.
But does that sort of kind of look like camps?
It's absolutely
from the onset.
It's absolutely
that's
a camp.
A worry for me.
It's absolutely a camp. And here's the question that you have to bring up: is this like the Japanese internment camps we had, where we took American citizens and put them in camps? Or is this more like a holding space until we can figure out what to do with you? And I think that idea does have some PR issues, but they can be ameliorated if we tell the refugees, we will take you in, but here's where you're going. So here's what, you have a choice. You can either not come or you can come to this place. That looks like a camp.
I do have some additional payment concerns with that. There's additional money that has to go to that.
Sure.
I'd have to look at the numbers right off because there's extra security, there's power and water and everything that goes in, because those bases that are closed, they don't have any of that right now.
And that's why it would have to be a compromise wherein that would be a place where...
A what?
I know. A dirty word. I'm sorry. We'll bleep that out, and I'll just have a little thing over my mouth so you won't know that I said the dirty word, compromise. Said it again.
Yeah.
That could be a compromise between the left and the right, whereas the left's like,
you're making me laugh again.
I know, it doesn't happen. Bring them in, and the right's like, keep them out. Well, how about this middle ground? But in order to reach that middle ground, you're going to have to pay a little bit out of another bad word, taxes.
Ooh, be quiet. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about, more about taxes. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Welcome back, and now it is time for a lighthearted issue of taxes, corruption, cronyism, fraud, and government programs gone wrong. Adam, tell us about SourceAmerica.
Well, when I first came across it, I was really shocked, and I had to find additional sources. That was my first thing is, hey, let me make sure that this is real. Let me see if there's other... Because I had seen nothing else about it, and it seems too big for there to be nothing else about.
Right.
The one other thing I found... We're going to link both of my sources down here. One is WikiLeaks, and the other is CNN. And Anderson Cooper did an expose on it. I don't really watch CNN or Anderson Cooper that much. I'm really glad that they did do an expose on this, but this should be a daily thing. This should be as big as Benghazi.
Way bigger than Benghazi. Yeah. I would say, because this is actually, where somebody has been caught with their hand in the cookie jar, the $3 billion cookie jar, it looks like.
Two administrations deep.
Right. Everybody's got a hand in this thing. Now, the WikiLeaks is actually recordings.
Yeah.
And so that is like the source material.
Yes.
That's what caused all this, was WikiLeaks released these recordings.
And I want to say it's like 60 hours of audio that I did not listen to. It's just too much. I got other things to do. I did read all the footnotes, and the link that we have has all the footnotes in it. The most important things, though, are the numbers. And that's just the raw data that we have. And the first number is $3 billion.
Billion with a B.
That's $3 billion. And the way this works is that there's a bucket. And there's a lot of buckets. And whenever we pay our taxes as Americans, that the government, mostly Congress, separates them into these buckets. That they're in charge of budgeting where all of our money goes. And they put them in these buckets. You know, we have one bucket that goes to welfare. Here's a bucket for Social Security. Here's little buckets for everything.
And they're very complicated because they divide things in discretionary, non-discretionary, military. Various kinds of divisions of buckets. And so it's almost like they try to make it obscure on purpose, honestly.
It almost seems that way, and this makes that idea make sense, because one of the buckets is the AbilityOne program. And what the AbilityOne program is, it's our tax dollars going to government contracts to employ about 50,000 disabled people in the United States. So this is a very, very good program on the surface.
Right. Sounds like a great idea. It pumps money back into the economy. It helps get disabled people back into the workforce instead of just taking money on welfare rolls or whatnot.
Or disability.
Or what have you. On the surface, sounds like a winner.
And it is a winner so long as it's operated as such.
Right.
And it's not. Surprise, surprise, it is not operated as such. Let me go to the quote. Most of the money, $2.3 billion a year, is funneled through the nonprofit SourceAmerica to more than 1,000 other designated partner organizations. The subsidized disabled labor is then placed for a fee with government and industry. So they're basically chopping contracts. It's this company gets the contract. So here's AbilityOne with the contract. They source it to SourceAmerica, and then SourceAmerica starts sourcing it out to different companies. And this is where the problem starts blossoming, because now we have a fourth degree of separation from the government and where their money has gone. It makes oversight very difficult and non-existent for this particular program. So basically what the story has said is that these contracted companies on the fourth end have not been hiring disabled people. They have not been hiring anybody. They've just been taking the money. Your tax dollars to the tune of, $3 billion a year.
So this is where the conservatives should be jumping up and down, screaming and hollering. Government programs don't work.
We can't pick winners and losers.
Right. Government is an inefficient way of dividing up these services, and it should be left to the private market and to individuals giving to charity.
Hang on, though, because the top beneficiaries are the DoD, Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, and Boeing. We're talking about the military-industrial complex here.
Right.
Really reaping the benefits. And if you're on the right or the left, and I'm sorry, when it comes to the military-industrial complex, there is no line. You're all on the same side, and you're on the side.
Well, many are. Yeah. That's not incorrect. I would say that there are more on the right who are much more about militarization than on the left, because there are many more chicken hawks.
You're right. You're right. I would also say there's also more states that manufacture tanks and bombs and aircraft.
Right.
And if you are a governor or any sort of representative from that state, from that district, and you turn your back on defense, then you risk your constituents losing their jobs. And this becomes a very big issue.
Absolutely. We live in Macon, Georgia, and just 30 minutes south of us is Robins Air Force Base. And you better believe that Austin Scott, who is the congressman for the 8th Congressional District, and Sanford Bishop, who is the congressman for the 2nd Congressional District, which both share that space, they are all about keeping Robins. They're all about keeping the contractors happy, keeping the defense contractors happy.
Jobs.
Because it's a jobs program. And if you want to couch it as a jobs program, I get that. But I just think it needs to be make sure that it is funded efficiently as such. But they want to make it solely a defense, safety, security spending,
and it's a little bit of both.
It's a little bit of both, right? And I think that you need to be honest about that, because when you are not honest about it, then you get things like this, where they can take in money for supposedly DOD, Northrop Grumman contracts, but they're not as scrutinized because it's not a purely welfare or jobs-based
They're not
bill.
making good on the deal, and I don't want to say that it's necessarily Northrop Grumman's fault or Lockheed Martin's fault or Boeing's fault, because they're the fourth man down. They might not even realize that these other companies before them are cashing in before giving them contracts, which there should be equal bidding anyway, and that's a completely different story.
It needs to be investigated, though.
There needs to be a lot of investigation. Like I said, with 60 hours of audio here, and like I said, there's so much pertinent information on this link, it's ridiculous.
There are recordings of people talking about giving jobs to their best friend, and basically hand-me-downs to this person's assistant, and all kinds of things like that.
Yep.
Where
the nonprofits, basically, that are involved on the first two levels, increasing nothing. They're just hiring and not actually... They're not hiring people with disabilities.
Right. They're hiring their friends. Yeah. They're hiring their friends' friends.
And they're not offering new services either, and that's what they're supposed to be doing. And like I said, they're just raking in this $3 billion a year. That's our money. It's our taxpayer dollars.
I don't think that this is necessarily even a story about military. I think that's actually ancillary. And I don't think it's a story about how inefficient government is. I think it's a story about the lack of government oversight.
It is.
And I think it's also, you hinted on it, a story about the media and their supposed role as government oversight, that they are failing miserably.
They're not good watchdogs. I have to give credit where credit is due to Anderson Cooper and also to WikiLeaks. But WikiLeaks will put anything out at this point. But I haven't heard it anywhere else, and it's shocking that this isn't as big as Benghazi.
Because it's boring. It's so many numbers, and it's accounting, and
but it's money. It's our money. It's our money.
It's important. But how many of our viewers have stopped listening by now? Because it's just like,
I'm whining, I get it, I got thin skin, the media's so mean to me.
This is not as exciting as, say, like the debates, or Donald Trump said this, or whatever.
It should be, because we're putting veterans out of work with this, because they're included in the 50,000 disabled. We're going to end up having to double spend because of this, because we're putting money to get these people hired, but they're not going to end up getting hired, or they're going to end up on disability anyway. So there's double. See, there's action. I got action in this. Double spending. That's big action, right?
I'm telling you.
Check out the links. Read what we have for you right underneath this, because this is an important story.
It's a hugely important story, and this is government in action. Where, essentially things are not being done the way they're supposed to be. And if we want to have a government that actually works and government officials that work for us, then we have to hold their feet to the fire. This is the time. I would say everybody needs to be talking to their congressman and asking them why they haven't provided sufficient oversight for that.
Absolutely. What do we got coming up next?
Last thing, we're going to talk about the Sanders-Clinton exchange about Wall Street in the last debate.
Oh, it's going to be lighthearted.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. It's time for a little bit of politics. What you got for us, Fred?
So, last week was the second Democratic National Convention debate between Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, and Martin O'Malley.
Who's that last one?
I know. Martin O'Malley. He's still there, guys. I don't know for how long, to be honest with you. I think it's really between Clinton and Sanders.
Yes.
But, I like the guy, so, good on him for doing as well as he's done so far. He was a pretty good governor.
He's very well rehearsed.
Yes.
Which is both a good thing and a bad thing.
Yes.
Because I know he's rehearsed.
Depending upon what you're looking for in a politician. Do you want them to sound crisp, clear, and collected? Then rehearse. Do you want to know what they really think? Don't rehearse. And
do you want them angry with lots of hand
motions? Who even knows what's going to come out?
But the biggest news about this debate...
it was kind of a tepid debate until there was one time when Sanders finally went on the offensive. People have been waiting. When Sanders is going to finally go on the offensive against Clinton to try to take her
He's got one bullet.
Lead.
He's got one bullet for this.
And he used it. Quote, I have never heard a candidate, who has received huge amounts of money from oil, from coal, from Wall Street, from military-industrial complex. Not one candidate says, oh, these campaign contributions will not influence me. I'm going to be independent. Well, why do they make millions of dollars in contributions? They know they get something. Everybody knows that. At that point, Clinton realized he's talking about her. Yeah. And so she jumped. At that moment, like, wait, Wall Street, me, connected. Wait.
Not when he said the word contributions.
Right.
Martin O'Malley was like, is that me?
Guys, Clinton jumped in, and he said he has basically used his answer to impugn my integrity. Let's be frank here. Now, mind you, he didn't say her name in that answer.
Yeah.
But she just knew he was talking about her. I represented New York. And I represented New York on 9/11 when we were attacked. Where were we attacked? We were attacked in downtown Manhattan where Wall Street is. I did spend a whole lot of time and effort helping them rebuild. That was her answer.
It's awful.
Now, I'm going to tell you, the punditry came out applauding. Great answer. That was a fantastic answer. But she really knocked
But they weren't even listening. They just applauded because that's what you do.
You know what? They did quote her. I would say that, Vox.com said it was a great answer. New Republic said it was a new answer. The Atlantic said it was a great answer. Everybody was saying it was a great answer.
But if you look in Sanders' quote, they get money from a lot of these contributors.
Right. So I don't think it was that great an answer. I think it was basically 9/11.
That's exactly what it was. It was using 9/11 to get an emotional response.
Right, to get her emotional response, and that's exactly what happened.
9/11 vagina. I thought, yay!
There's actually a thing going around Facebook. What's interesting is the professional punditry thought was a great answer. A lot of the people don't.
No.
Especially a lot of the Field of Burn people who don't like anything Clinton says. They really hated it. But even some of the people who are kind of on the fence were like, you didn't answer the question. You just said 9/11.
Exactly.
And there's a meme going around where essentially the show Family Guy prophesied about this.
That was an episode.
There was an episode where Lois was running for mayor, and she was told basically if you get stumped on an answer, just have some raw, some just pat answers you can spout for anything. And they were like, I forget what the question was, something like, what are you going to do about lowering taxes or the pond that's polluted or something? And she goes, 9/11. And then they're like, yeah, that's great, woo! And it's supposed to be funny because that's kind of how some politicians seem to have done, but that's exactly what she did.
Yep. Now, did you see the polls, the scientific polls that came out after this debate?
I saw some of them.
There was one particular one that came out, and there were a couple of stories on it. Of course, not in conventional news, but only online news. And you won't find it in Slate or any of the bigger news outlets online. But one of the polls was actually taken by, I guess, a super PAC for Hillary Clinton.
Okay.
That said that she won.
Yes.
And I want to say it was PPP hired the super PAC. Hired Hillary's super PAC to do the polling. Like, why not just say Hillary won? I mean, just right off the bat, because you're already, skewing the lines here.
Right. I mean, in any polling, there's always a bias in any polling. That's why I actually prefer to look at polling aggregates.
If you're the poller.
No, I'm saying, even with pollsters, we all know that Rasmussen is very right-leaning. We all know that PPP tends to go to the left. We all know that Fox News just does whatever the heck they feel like doing.
But these are already built-ins. This is PPP, not using one of those that's a built-in. They're actually using something that is for... Like, they have their bias on their name.
Right, on their name.
Like, it's just absolutely ridiculous. It's going too far with the money.
Well, you know what? Honestly, maybe if Sanders had his own super PAC, instead of being such a wuss about money, then maybe he wouldn't have to worry about it. Maybe he could get PPP to hire his super PAC to do a poll. But no, he's got to have all these ethics and stuff.
And standards. Like,
whatever.
Come on. But no, I like the campaign that he's running. I do think that it's time to attack. He knows that he's not going to get any ammunition on Benghazi, and I think that if the Republicans, if Fox News would just actually watch Bernie Sanders, they would get actual ammunition against Hillary Clinton.
Sure, of course they would.
They would get real stuff.
But that would be, using their brains and stuff. And,
yeah. They'd have to listen to a liberal speak.
Here's the thing to bear in mind for this, just a historical note. At this point in 2008, Clinton was the front runner as well against a little guy named Barack Obama.
Yep.
And who was just a U.S. senator. He was a one-term, 2-year U.S. senator. He had been a state legislator before that. Just a nobody, really. And it was about this time she was the front runner. It was also about this time he started attacking. He started attacking hard.
Yep.
And unless Sanders starts attacking hard, then Clinton will be the nominee. Now, personally, I don't care if Clinton's the nominee or not. I like them both for various reasons. But just sitting there watching the fight, being the commentator, if he doesn't come out swinging soon, he's going to be knocked on the mat.
And it'll make for great TV. Not as good as Trump TV.
No, nothing's as good as Trump TV.
But it will make great TV.
Nothing's as good as Trump TV. We're all grateful for Trump for at least making the campaign much more enjoyable.
News networks have got to love him right now. They're making lots of money off of their ratings. Speaking of Trump, I showed you the polls earlier.
Yeah.
Today's polls. And 2 days ago, polls went out, and there were some saying that... And I was mostly looking at the general election. It was basically a breakdown of every single Republican candidate, so a big breakdown, and versus Clinton, and some were versus Sanders. And you could see there's a good mix of Republicans coming out, the Republican candidate coming out on top, or Clinton coming out on top 2 days ago. But it was also done again today. And it's all red. It's all Republicans win. And the most telling in here was the top one and the bottom one. The top one is Clinton versus Trump, and the bottom one is Sanders versus Trump. And both of them say Trump +5. What do you think about that?
I think that's interesting because there's no difference between those two candidates and the numbers. They're just, you could have just said, it seems like, standard Democrat versus Trump.
Yeah.
You put a D in there, I don't care who they are, versus Trump, which says to me that
they're tied.
They're tied, and that in the minds of the voter, if I'm going to vote for a Dem, I'd vote for Sanders, I'd vote for Clinton. Now, I would love to see those numbers broken down and actually see if they actually swung that way, or if it was more youth for Sanders, or more women for Clinton, or whatever, or if it truly was, I'm voting for a D.
I'm going to put this poll down here also for the viewers so you guys can check out what we're looking at.
And this is Real Clear Politics, which is one of the places that I like to go for my polling because they do poll aggregation. So they don't actually do the polling themselves, but they like to gather together. And that's where you can get a good sense of many polls and get an idea kind of what's really going on.
Yep.
Then you can cut through a lot of that bias and preferences we talked about earlier in this segment.
And the most recent polls for the head-to-heads, they were all Fox, but you'll see that if you just click on the link.
Exactly. They were all Fox, so there's a definite bias there, which is why I would say look over several days and get a picture for what's been going on. Look for trends, not just these little spot polling. In this moment, this is what we thought.
All right, well, we want to thank you guys for joining us. I'm hoping we were a little bit quicker today. We're trying to get our time down a little bit. If you do like what you saw, go ahead and hit the little like button down there. Subscribe. We're going to come at you every 2 weeks, and we've got other shows that we're doing on the channel.
Please, because that's the best way that we can know that we are delivering things that are important to you.
Fact check us and go to the comments.
Tell us how wrong we were.
Yeah.
Down there.
And we'll respond. You could also hit us up on Twitter. I'm at St. Riffraff.
I'm at Fred Swann.
Once again, it was great having you with us. We'll see you again in about 2 weeks.
Take it easy.